This is the question someone asked me when I did this offline Ask Abhijit session in the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore about the Indus Waters Treaty. So India sends a tough message to Pakistan, issues notice of modification to Indus Water Treaty. This treaty was signed in the 1960s. It was the World Bank, which is owned by the US, which brokered this treaty between India and Pakistan. It's one of the historically most one-sided treaties you can imagine. About 80% of the water goes to Pakistan. India retains only 20% of the water, and our magnificent, great Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, agreed to this incredibly one-sided agreement, which benefits Pakistan and does not and is very bad for India. So India has sent a message to Pakistan, and it's issued a notice of modification of the Indus Water Treaty. So there is no need for a nation to keep on agreeing to a treaty that is not in its benefit. Every nation has the right to walk away from treaties. The Americans had signed the nuclear agreement, which I just spoke about with Iran, and they walked away from it. They broke the treaty because it was not in their benefit. The US President, Mr. Trump, at the time decided it was not beneficial to the US, and that's why he unilaterally walked away from the treaty. Every nation has the right to do this. The Chinese had this agreement with the UK about Hong Kong, the one nation, two systems agreement. The Chinese unilaterally broke the agreement because they said it's our right to walk away from an agreement. So India also has the right to walk away from an agreement or to modify an agreement if it is not beneficial to India. We are under no obligation to keep on agreeing to a one-sided treaty. And the World Bank or any other nation or any other organization or nation has no right to tell India what to do. So India has sent this message. What does it say? So this treaty was from 1960. The notice was conveyed on January 25 this year to the Pakistanis. What is it all about? So in 2015, Pakistan had requested for the appointment of a neutral expert to examine some objections to India's Kishanganga and Ratle hydroelectric projects. The Pakistanis unilaterally retracted this request and proposed a court of arbitration adjudicate on this, and there's all this going on. So the World Bank is getting involved in this. They are interfering in this. So the Indian government has said that the World Bank cannot interpret this treaty. India has insisted that the treaty provides a graded mechanism for handling such issues, which should first be handled by the commissioners for Indus waters of the two countries, then a neutral expert, then ultimately a court of arbitration. Once India is in a stronger position in 5-10 years, we can just unilaterally decide what is to be done. Right now, we're talking about a graded mechanism and all that. So India has questioned the World Bank's decision to go ahead and with two parallel processes to address this dispute, which says that this is not in consonance with the provisions of the Indus Water Treaty. So the World Bank is doing something that is not in consonance with the treaty that it itself oversaw. So India wants to renegotiate this treaty brokered by the World Bank. And there, you can read the article. It goes into the details of what the objections are and what the World Bank is trying to do. Now, this is an interesting article. PM Modi gave hint of Indus Water Treaty rethink after the Uri attack of 2016. It's a brief article. Let's take a look at it. A hint of the Narendra Modi government's rethink on the Indus Water Treaty came for the first time in September 2016. Blood and water cannot flow together, the Prime Minister had told officials attending a treaty review meeting that took place 11 days after Pakistan-backed terrorists attacked the Indian Army base at Uri in Jammu, killing 18 soldiers. Less than 2 years later, the Prime Minister in May 2018 inaugurated a 330 megawatt Kishanganga hydel project at Bandipur and laid the foundation stone for a 1,000 megawatt plant at Kishtwar in Jammu and Kashmir. Two other large hydel projects, Sawalkot 1856 megawatts and Bursar 800 megawatts, were also fast-tracked soon after the September 2016 treaty review meeting mentioned earlier. These projects indicate that the government was ready to respond to Islamabad's use of terror against India with every option, including denying Pakistan's liberal flow of Indus water in excess of the 1960 treaty's provisions. The The launch of the Pakal Dol project, which has been hanging fire for a decade, underlined the Modi government's intent to fast track infrastructure on the Indus water system to maximize India's water use within the treaty's ambit, and hopefully in the future take more. This includes building hydel projects on various tributaries like the Chenab and the Jhelum, as well as streams feeding them. Since then, the center has fast tracked a slew of stalled hydel projects aggregating nearly 4,000 megawatt capacity in Jammu and Kashmir, and various foundation stones have been laid down. Uh, India, a 2011 report by a US Committee on Foreign Relations said that India could use these projects as a way to control Pakistan's supply from the Indus, consider its jugular vein. The cumulative effect of these projects could give India the ability to store enough water to limit the supply to Pakistan at crucial moments in the growing season. Clearly, speeding up pending hydel projects and storage infrastructure is a key component of India's Indus strategy, as the treaty in its present form allows India to build storage capacities up to 3.6 million acre feet for various purposes. So India is now taking this matter very seriously. Simply threatening Pakistan that we will uh, revise the treaty or whatever is just words. But when you start building capability, when you start building these projects, dams and various other projects, reservoirs and all that, canals, then you can actually translate those words into real world actions. And India is now fast tracking a bunch of projects, which is, I would say, still early days, but we are now doing this. And in a few years, we'll be in a we'll be capable of denying Pakistan water at crucial moments in its growing season and all that. See, we have nothing against the people of Pakistan, but the Pakistani nation is a nation that is sworn to destroy India, and they have played this terrorist angle for decades, supported by much larger powers. So India needs to be in a position to give it back to Pakistan, and by building the capability to store water from the Indus River system, and thereby deny Pakistan water if required, that gives India a significant advantage. So India is now no longer doing a war with words, it's actually walking the talk. It's still early days. We need to build a much larger capacity, which will definitely happen over the next 10-20 years. I don't know if Pakistan will last that long, because as we know, what is Pakistan? We know what it is, right? It's a temporary nation. But still, India should have the capacity to store water as and when required. And India has now told Pakistan, we want to renegotiate the treaty. This treaty is not something that we can agree to anymore. The World Bank is trying to support Pakistan. The World Bank is owned by the US, more or less. So these nations always do that. And these organizations always do that. They have consistently been anti-India. And the US, these are facts. I am not being emotional or judgmental here. I'm talking about facts. The US has consistently been anti-India. They these days are more favorably inclined towards India because of the China angle and the China threat, but they still view Pakistan as an integral part of their anti-India policy to keep India off balance, to counterbalance India. And this support for Pakistan is part of that strategy. So there you are. So that's something that's happening. India is now walking the talk, and India wants to renegotiate the treaty, amend the treaty, make it more equitable. 80% of the water cannot keep going to Pakistan. Why the hell should it? So yeah, it's to some extent a pressure tactic, but to some extent it's actually walking the talk. So interesting development there. And the seeds of this entire matter were planted in 2016. That's when India's Prime Minister decided that we need to change things up and create and build the capacity to divert the waters and store the waters if required, as and when required, because it's our right to do so.